Welcome, everybody. It is Four Nations Cup Eve. Happy Four Nations tournament to everyone around the world, especially in the Four Nations. What an exciting tournament we got coming up here. Canada, USA, Sweden, and Finland. The tournament starts tomorrow night with Sweden playing Team Canada. And that is taking place at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
And this is your Grublets on Ice Four Nations special.
Yes. An extra. Lucky you. Now, let's start off with discussing the teams. Would you like to start?
Yeah, and we'll start right at home with Team Canada and what we think of their lineup this year.
Team Canada roster coming up right at you after these messages.
Yeah, we don't have any messages. We'll just go right to it.
I was hoping.
So up front, I say we have the most stacked team. The rest are no slouches, but there's no, even the fourth line, there's no weak point. Like, our extra would be Sam Bennett or Konechny, and they're both elite players. I probably would have picked someone else over those two, but they're still elite, so I can't complain too much. I know the lines that are projected, it was, let me double check here. I think it was McDavid, Marner, and Reinhart together.
McDavid, Marner, and Reinhart? Yeah, I saw something similar to that. That is a lethal line. As long as Marner shoots the puck.
No. I think they're assuming that Marner's not going to, because you have Reinhart, who's a goal scorer. You have McDavid, who can be if he wants to, and Marner just passes a lot. Marner's elite, but that works out. The second line that they have projected is Stone, Crosby, and McKinnon.
That's a defensive wonder.
Sorry?
You got Stone, who's going to get the puck back off anybody. Crosby can do that as well. Crosby is still an elite 37-year-old phenom. And McKinnon is just nuts.
Yeah, McKinnon's kind of everything. I mean, these lines, we'll go through it once we name them all, but they each have a good defensive person, minimum one on there. And then third line would be Jarvis, Point, and Marchand.
Jarvis, Point, and Marchand.
Yeah.
You got a pest. You got one of the highest shooting percentages in the league still. And who was the third? Remind me.
Jarvis, Point, Marchand.
Jarvis. Well, everybody knows what Jarvis is like. He's one incredible up-and-coming player. He's still fairly young.
He's been very hot in his last few games here.
Mm-hmm.
He's just been elite. I mean, he's been an elite player all year, but he's just really stepped it up.
Seth Jarvis. He's a huge. Sorry, excuse me. I have a little bit of a
Here
cold.
we go. Okay.
He's a
Since
huge
January
part of
1st. He has 20 points. He's tied for second most goals in the NHL, most goals by any player at home with 11, and the only player with 2 4-point games. So I will admit initially I wasn't sold on him, but he's proven me wrong. He's really picked up the pace, so
he's ready to go. He's ready to go. I mean, he was only drafted 5 years ago, 2020, first round, 13th overall.
With the pick that was traded to Canes in exchange for taking Marlowe's contract.
Yes, thank you for that reminder. Yeah, they sold Marlowe on that. Oh, yeah, that happened.
The fourth line is Hagel, Sorelli, and Bennett.
Now Bennett's name.
Yeah, I would have subbed in Scheifele for Bennett personally, but that's just me.
The issue with that is it's your fourth line, and I mean they're still incredible players. They've like Sorelli and Hagel are penalty killers on that Tampa Bay Lightning team. So like you need someone to kill your penalties. You can score all the power play goals if you want, but you can't keep the puck out of your net on the penalty kill. You're breaking even at best.
You have at least one PK guy per line here.
Exactly. So you have three very strong units, including Sorelli in that, and Brandon Hagel. They play together in Tampa. They are a big part of that depth core of the Tampa Bay Lightning's near three-peat.
Yes.
So
I still would have subbed out Bennett for Scheifele.
Scheifele's
tough. He's just better.
Well, we've all seen that hit that he laid on Jake Evans.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about that hit.
It was a good hit. It was unnecessary, but it was a hard hit.
A little bit.
But
it was I'm pissed off there's an empty netter in the playoffs hit. But, that's just stacked there. And the matchups on defense right now, Taves and Makar, one of the best pairs in the league. They already have chemistry. Yep. It's going to be an advantage kind of up over other players, other pairings.
Shut down and scoring ability.
Yeah. Doughty. I have nothing personally against Doughty, but what the hell is he doing on Team Canada?
So it's obvious that Doughty. Team Canada, don't Doughty him, okay? He's just returning from injury. I agree. If he was healthy all season, maybe it's an entirely different story. But he's had a lot of success with Team Canada. You look at the World Juniors, Olympics, world tournaments. He's done well on Team Canada at the international level. So there is that value there.
Yes,
it's just the injury part where he's been injured the entire season. That's a huge factor. He's technically right now in preseason form because he hasn't been in too much game action.
Exactly. So, I mean, I get he's a respected vet. He's 35. He has a crap ton of experience. He knows what it's like to win. But he has played 6 games this season. Like, what are you doing? There's much better options. I would have taken Ekblad, Uyghur, Dobson, any of those guys.
I would definitely agree with any one of those. But Canada likes their guys. They like their guys that they've had success with, and sometimes they're not ready to move on, even though they're aging vets.
It's a fault this year. I mean, I think the management is terrible right now, not selecting Thompson because they didn't like him. They had issues in Vegas. He was traded out. Like, okay, screw off. You select the best goalie, and selecting Doughty because it's Drew Doughty. I don't care if it's Drew Doughty. There's better options. There's equivalent options. Even if he was mid-season form, it would be debatable. It depends on how he was doing, but based on last year, it'd be debatable. Ekblad's still great. Uyghur's great. Either of those boys would do very well. But that said, hopefully Doughty just bounces right back and gets into it, because if not, we're going to be in for a rough run with that pair. There is Sanheim who can sub in, thankfully.
Yeah, he's a big body. He's a Philadelphia Flyer for whatever that means. He's a tough guy. He's big body. He can shut down, and there's multiple guys that could step into that spot, and you can sub in anybody on that third line and still have a strong pair. We'll see how Doughty does. Second pair. Sorry,
that's where he's listed. The third pair, speaking of, is Josh Morrissey and Colton Parayko. So, offensive phenom and defensive defenseman who's been so elite in his own end.
Parayko was a huge part of that St. Louis Blues Stanley Cup win, right behind Pietrangelo. Very, very similar. He's a big body, and it must suck to try and go up against him.
Yeah, Parayko is a like you said, he's a big dude, and his defense has just been elite year after year. Um, sorry, his offense has dropped off, but that's okay. It's good to have a shutdown guy. He's 6'6" and 228.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It I mean, how much of that is his offense has just gone down? Or how much of that is just he plays for the St. Louis Blues?
Hmm. I mean, it hasn't dropped down that much. Like he was in the mid 30s before, and last year he put up 26 points. But honestly, this year he already has 29, so it's bounced back a little bit.
So I think it's he's a strong option there. And I mean,
He'll be
the cup
solid.
experience is huge.
And Sandheim is extra. I'm okay with. Once again, I would have rathered Uyghur. Honestly, Uyghur because he can play both sides. He's a right shot, but he can play the left or the right. It would have been more versatile for them. That's all.
I'd agree. Oh, with those two options between Sandheim and Uyghur, I'd go with Uyghur. But yeah, I'm surprised
Sandheim's still
they've
good.
left. Yeah, he's still a phenomenal defenseman. I still can't believe they left off Ekblad. You have that assistant captain,
Yeah.
defenseman, big body, just won a Stanley Cup like what 10 months ago,
Yeah.
and
It,
he's riding high, and he's an amazing option that I think they missed out on.
would have been good,
But
but I am okay with this decor. Um,
mhm.
like I said, Doughty, he can be switched out if there's any issues. Now, here is Canada's weakest position by far, goaltending. And like I said, they
Really,
should have taken Thompson, but they're special. And they hold grudges even though they're grown men. So we have Hill,
yes,
Bennington, and Montembeau instead.
yep. I mean,
Hill,
Montembeau's been very, very up and down all season. He's had high 90s. He's had a couple shutouts, including in the first game of the season against the Toronto Maple Leafs. And he's playing for a Montreal team who had a little bit of a hot streak. They're not an amazing team. They've got hot when they got Line, and then, like you've said in the group chat, Fortnite came out or whatever that update is. I don't play it, but whatever that update is, and he's been what 0 goals in 5 games since, or something like that.
yeah, that and a -1. I think it was the OG, so like it goes back to the original Fortnite, something like that. Coworker plays, he explained it to me. I kind of half listened.
Gotcha.
Um, but Hill's like low 900s, like 903, 904. Bennington and Montembeau are both sub 900. They're around 895, 896. Bennington's been named the starter. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully that decor can play some good defense for them and they'll be able to survive that.
It, yeah. I mean, you put a good, strong defense in front of a confident goalie, even if he's not the best goalie. A confident goalie is waiting in his zone. So strong defense with back checking forwards, and Team Canada is ripe with back checking forwards and just defensively minded forwards. So
I will
it
say,
the goal is
um,
support.
defense, like if you look at each line, Reinhardt could win the Selkie this year easily. Stone's been in Selkie conversation. Crosby's been in Selkie conversation. Jarvis is in the Selkie conversation this year. Sorelli, he's just constantly good defensively. So each
Mhm.
line has at least one
Oh,
that's really just elite. I think Reinhardt's one of the smartest players in the game. He just sees it so well. If you watch him when he plays, he's always a
mhm.
couple steps ahead.
And he's mean.
He
He
can't be. It's Reinhardt. I mean, he's a
he was.
little. I'd
You
be
saw
mean if I
glimpses of
played in
it.
Buffalo too.
No, I'd be mean to Buffalo if I played in there, like he was.
Um,
One, but you look at St. Louis. How much of it is Bainton not having a great season? How much of it is they play in the same division as Winnipeg, Dallas, Minnesota, and Colorado? That
if he was
is a
still an
tough.
elite goalie, he could still be good on a bad team. Just because you're good doesn't mean you're winning games. Look at Luke Dostal.
He has been amazing. Yes.
Look at Dustin Wolf. Wolf's won a lot of games, but even in the ones that he's lost, he's been good and lost. You can say that with any goalie. Look at Olmark. He gave up, I think, 7 goals over 2 games and still had a 9-15.
7 goals in 2 games.
Yeah, one was 3 goals, one was 4.
In today's NHL, that's not obscene though. Like you look 15 years ago, a 2-1 game was pretty common, but now 3-4 goals is starting to become average. But
so we'll see. Hopefully they hold down the net well, but we'll see. We're gonna have to rely on that offense and some stellar defensive players. One thing that's scary is our power play.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what the first power play unit is?
I think we can all imagine.
It will be Reinhart, McDavid, McKinnon, Crosby, and Makar.
Any one of those guys can beat a goalie clean. Any one of them. And they will. The problem is one of the issues that you can have, the Leafs have had that issue in, well, I don't know, the last 8 years. You can have a star-studded power play, but then everybody wants to shoot the puck, but nobody wants to shoot the puck. And then you end up just cycling the puck. So that's...
No offense, but this is a Leaf-free power play. You have guys that know when to shoot. Reinhart is the goal scorer of the power play, but, like I said, McDavid's won a rocket Richard. Crosby's won a rocket Richard. McKinnon is more of a playmaker, but the guy can certainly score. Makar has like 22 goals, something like that this year.
Makar?
Something crazy.
I don't know, but all I know is that when he gets going, he jumps in Makar and goes.
Moving on from that fun. So overall, Team Canada, they have the potential to be good. I hope that they're good. But there's no guarantees here because of that goaltending weakness. So
goaltending with
we'll see what happens.
Could be huge. Like Bennington is coming from the, like I said, he's coming from the St. Louis Blues to knowing what's in front of him. He's probably brimming with confidence of like, holy moly, look at this.
Yes. And the other teams have really good goalies. That's the only thing. Obviously, like the U.S. has Hellbuck, who's going to start.
Fastest to 300. Was it 300 or 400 goals? Oh, sorry, games.
Wins.
Sorry, wins.
Sweden, I think Olmark's going to be the starter, and that Markstrom's out.
Olmark
or Gustafsson, one of the two. Either way, they're pretty solid.
Yeah. USA also has Jake Ottinger. I mean, we're not going to count Swayman because he's still not having a great season. But Ottinger just lost in the playoffs last year to Connor McDavid and crew. So, and that was a good series. Like, he played extremely well in that series, and he's one of the best goalies in the league. The only issue for Team USA is you can't have both in the net at the same time.
Yeah, true.
So,
one of them has to start. Team USA. So,
moving on.
Their lines are pretty stacked as well, but not as stacked as ours up front. So the first line is Kyle Connor, Jack Eichel, and Matthew Tkachuk. Absolutely elite. Connor can fly. Eichel's elite both ways, and Tkachuk's a little pest. Matthew Tkachuk.
Not head fake Tkachuk.
No, Brady is a pest too, but he'll kick your ass. Matthew just runs away.
He knows better. Brady's
an animal. So that's the first line, and that's elite. They can score. Second line is Jake Guentzel, Austin Matthews, and Jack Hughes. So all those boys have the ability to score. Hughes is, I'd label him as the playmaker of the line. Obviously, Matthews is the main shooter. Gunsel's kind of half and half.
Matthews is one of the best goal scorers in the league. I mean, he just won the Rocket. He's won a Rocket Richard, and he has the ability to go and score. He has the ability to go and score 9 goals this tournament, easy, if he really wanted to. So having him on your second line, that's pretty deadly one too.
And third line, my boy Brady Tkachuk. Wait, there.
Yeah, he's fine.
That is my signed jersey because he's a great dude. JT Miller and Matt Boldy. So Chucky's having an okay season, nothing crazy, but he plays playoff style hockey all year, so that's just going to be good for them. Yep. Miller's having a decent season. He's bounced back now that he's on the Rangers. I believe Boldy's actually having a little bit of a down year. Let me double check that before I eat my words, but
that's a pretty Boldy statement.
Let's see.
Don't hate
actually me. Not terrible. Kind of on pace for what he did last year. He has 48 points in 56 games, which is pretty good. Last year he had 69 and 75, but they have 2 big boys on that line, plus Miller, who's just going to be a menace. So it's definitely going to be an annoying line. Probably draw some penalties playing that line out there.
Miller's probably going to upset his locker room before he upsets the other team.
Oh, Christ. Hopefully not in that amount of time. And here's
imagine
the weakest point that the U.S. has, in my opinion. Their fourth line has Nelson Trocheck as locks, and for some goddamn reason, the best player on this fourth line, Larkin, is rotating with Chris Kreider. Why the heck does that make sense?
Well, you got Kreider and Trocheck who have played together. They just went to, again, the third round of the playoffs last year, and they were key parts of that. They're having down years this year.
Yeah,
but they're feisty. Like, Trocheck's feisty, and so is Kreider. Kreider loves to score goals down low.
Yeah,
like, he scores playoff
goals. He's better.
He is, but
Nelson, I honestly don't know what Nelson's doing there. Like, you have to keep in mind, they didn't take Tage Thompson.
That guy's a beast.
He's one of the only stragglers.
He's 6'6". That's a big boy. But
6'6", 220 point per game on Buffalo. Buffalo. The man can score goals. Like, what are you doing?
Maybe they're just saber rattling.
But
they don't want.
They can't change rosters now. So there's one comment that I've seen, and people just constantly, why is Kreider there? And I'm going to side with them.
I would. Sometimes you have to sacrifice a little bit of skill, like take a little bit lesser of a player, because they have that chemistry.
Well, we'll see how much that chemistry pays off. Because if you subbed out Kreider for Thompson, and then made Thompson your center, Trocheck your extra, or Nelson your extra, it'd probably be better.
I'd agree.
But overall, very good lines. They definitely have a good 1-2 punch down the middle. Their wingers are a little bit... They're all elite players outside of Kreider this year and Trocheck and Nelson's top 6. But
I'm surprised they don't have JT Miller playing with Trocheck and Kreider, because he's a Ranger now. The Ranger line.
Yeah.
The guy who comes in, scores 2 goals on his first game as a Ranger, and loses.
They're just not quite as top end as Canada.
No.
They're still going to be able to score. I don't doubt that. But that's just not as top end.
So, in my opinion, they're feistier than Canada. They have scoring. They don't have the depth, like you said. My big thing is they don't have as strong of a two-way game as Canada has. They have the ability and firepower to blow other teams away in a 7-goal game. But they also have they're relying on a goaltender to basically steal all their games. Now he's in the closet.
Yes.
So I think that's
Lots of
one of the big.
banging.
Sorry.
Lots of banging for the listeners. Anyone on
And
audio
curtains.
just was sorry.
And curtains.
Okay.
So, yeah, their
They're just not quite as
biggest
deep.
upside is their goaltending. They can throw in either one of those two. I mean, Swaven's definitely your third man this year, but you can sub in Ottinger. You can sub in, or you can play Ottinger. You can play Hellebuck, and those guys are going to steal games. They're going to get some big saves for you, which even in the NHL, when you're not playing at the national level like this, at the NHL, your goalies have to make a few, at least 3 or 4 big saves that they probably should be making for your team to have a chance at winning. They
Well, their
both can
defense is
do
going to
that.
help out.
Yeah,
Their defensive pairs are really good for the top 4. So you have Slavin Fox. Slavin's so elite defensively, and Fox is good both ways. Werenski's having one hell of a year, and then paired with McAvoy, who's great both ways. Hanifin and Faber is their last pair, and Sanderson is listed as their extra. Player that everyone knows that they're missing by now, Quinn Hughes, which is a gigantic hit to them. Faber he's okay. There's nothing wrong. I mean, he's a good young right-hand shot D-man, but he's had a little bit of a down year.
Faber?
Now, that's probably a sophomore slump. It's only his second year in the league.
He doesn't have to be as elite because of the team that he plays on. Minnesota has a very strong team. I didn't think that they would still be in the running like they are right now at this time of year, early in the season, but they've convinced me. They lost Kaprizov, and they were able to do a lot without him. And Faber's still been a big part of that, but he's not. He's a strong option. He's still a very young option that Team USA in this type of tournament can field a few times. So,
honestly, if they're gonna have that pair, this is probably some Sens bias, but Sanderson's been better statistically than Hanifin this year. Throw him in, might make more sense back there. But basically, what I see here, our first pair beats their first pair. Mm-hmm. Their second pair beats our second pair because of Doughty being part of it. And our third pair, in my opinion, destroys their third pair. Because Morrissey's so elite offensively and Parayko's so elite defensively.
I would agree with that. Now, I'd be surprised. I think once the tournament gets rolling, that Doughty is probably going to slip down to that third pair. Like, that's going to become their third pair, playing third pair minutes because of what the other two lines can do.
Hopefully, but we'll see. Anyway, the USA has a good team.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of good all around. They lead the tournament in best goaltending. There's no question about that.
Agreed.
So we'll take a look at Sweden. And Sweden is just good. I mean, they have some elite talent. They have, as far as true elite players that have been good this year, Nylander, Philip Forsberg, Raymond, Jesper Bratt.
Lucas Raymond does not sound like a Swedish name at all.
Rickard Rakell has been really good for the Pens this year.
I'm pretty sure top scorer, like top goals there, or at least second.
He's close.
He was.
I need to double check. I don't know how Adrian Kempe is doing.
He's having I think an average year.
Oh yeah, he's basically a point per game, 46 and 53, so that's pretty good. Other than that, though, like obviously Pettersson's kind of been up and down with the whole JT Miller thing and all that crap going on, so he could bounce back. Elias Lindholm has not lived up to the contract he signed in Boston. So
not
Eriksson Ek is a great defensive guy, Selke level, like I've said with a few people. Nyquist has had a crap year. Arvidsson's had a crap year, and that's their fourth line. Other than that, it's okay. Their defense is something, though. Hedman, Brodin, Ekholm, Carlson, Dahlin, Rasmus Anderson.
They have a very strong decor. Is Ekholm defensively sound enough to pair with Erik Karlsson, who's basically a forward at this point?
I'm going to argue
has been atrocious.
this till I'm blue in the face. Ekholm is paired with turnover guy Evan Bouchard, and very similar play style to Karlsson, only thing he turns it over a lot more. So yeah, I think they'll be just fine.
That's what I was hoping you're going to say. That's perfect.
Why do you say that?
I'd agree with that. I kind of want to see what that. I was kind of setting you up a little bit for that one.
Okay. Well,
he was a huge part of that Edmonton Oilers team on the Stanley Cup.
The reason that pair is so good, like Bouchard is gifted offensively, but his defense and decision making in his own zone is bad. Obviously, he's had a few debacles this year.
And that's why he's not on Team Canada. His effort level has come into question as well.
Karlsson, on the other hand, he's obviously not quite at that 100-point level, and his defense isn't great. But I don't see him making those sort of terrible turnovers in his own zone. You don't see any highlights that you don't want to see like that. So Sweden is kind of like Bouchard.
Like Bouchard.
In my opinion, they're kind of a dark horse to win. Because usually, it's Canada or the US, but if their defense and goaltending can carry them, they have enough talent up front between those more elite players that they can score. They don't have to score a lot of goals to win a game as long as they can keep the other team at bay.
I can agree with that. They obviously, like you said, not as much firepower as the other teams.
It's their center depth that's the issue. Like their first line centers, Mika Zibanejad, Elias Pettersson, Eriksson Ek, Lindholm. On paper, great. This season, struggling, doing okay, struggling.
Pettersson's ups are high. His lows are, low. And how much of that was the JT Miller effect? You don't know that not enough time has really passed in that one.
I have a feeling, it's going to be funny when they play against each other. Like they're going to line up for a face-off, Miller versus Pettersson.
I have a feeling that the Canucks are going to try and shy away from that a little bit because Miller's going to win
in this
that
tournament,
altercation.
Dave.
No, I know. I'm saying in the NHL as well. But either way, I think whether it's like you said, whether it's Vancouver or whether it's Sweden, they're going to shy away from that maybe a little bit because Miller is a lot more physically abrasive than Pettersson is.
One note I'm going to add in here, they do have Gustav Forsling for defense as well. He didn't partake in practice on the day these lines were rolled because he was sick, but he could be thrown into any of those pairs. He's good.
Arguably one of the greatest waiver pickups in history.
Yeah. But, Sweden's looking okay. And here comes Finland, the complete underdog to win this tournament. I don't see them winning, but if they do, good for them.
Yes.
Their forwards are decent. They're not bad.
They're still very good.
They have Lehkonen, Barkov, and Rantanen as their first line, which is pretty good. Honestly, I'm surprised that they didn't switch it and put Aho and Rantanen together since they're playing together on Carolina now. But
Lehkonen and Rantanen have had that history previously.
Ooh, true. Actually, fair point.
And you throw with the most recent Selke winner.
Yeah, Barkov's just so good.
That's a top line that will rival any line in the tournament. Ranton's
Second
mean.
line,
Barkov's mean. And Lehkonen, I mean,
he's
he just
speedy.
had that highlight goal that he
He scored from his house.
Yes, his bum.
Yes.
Yeah.
The
He's a
second line
sneakily good goal scorer.
is Laine, Aho, and Teravainen. So you'll have good chem between Teravainen and Aho because they played together for so many years. And if Laine can stay off Fortnite for a couple weeks, he could pot some goals.
Yeah, he's definitely the goal scorer on that line.
Very Canadian of you.
Yes.
Third line, still pretty elite. Hintz, Granlund, Capo Caco. So keep in mind, Caco's been a point per game since he went to Seattle. Hintz is just elite. Granlund's having one heck of a year. Even if I think he's over a point per game. I don't know how much he's dropped off since he went to the Stars.
Not enough time seeing how well he's going to fit over there with Dallas, but he's been a very strong player for a really not so strong team.
So 49 points in 56 games, still pretty damn good considering he was on the Sharks.
Bottom feeder team.
Their fourth line is where they're weak. Luosterainen, Lundell, Armia, all good players, all top 6 guys. None of them are truly elite. Lundell has the potential to be, and Eric Hall is their extra, so another top 6 sort of dude.
Now
Lundell can shut players down.
Luosterainen he was a big part of that Philadelphia Flyers depth on that Stanley Cup winning team. So that's got value in its own.
It does.
But
Lundell too.
Yeah, but neither of them are making any of the other teams. Maybe
just
Sweden.
Quickly,
but
did you hear any of the cracks from that stretch?
No, I did
Damn
not.
it.
Maybe the viewers did. Let us know in the comments.
Well, if you didn't hear them, the viewers didn't hear them.
Well, you never know. I wasn't paying attention. I was trying to grab my power cord. That I do every episode now.
We'll move on to their defense, which is the main reason that I think they don't have a chance. So they lost their big piece in Miro Heiskanen. They also lost Jani Hakanpää. So their top pair consists of Nico Mikkola, Esa Lindell.
Have you seen a picture of Mikkola? The guy has a stick.
Hey, I'm a stick.
Yeah, he's like you. He's a stick. Like, he's got nothing to him. It's amazing. Like how some of these guys are like that. Anyways, moving on from that little tidbit.
Oli Mata and then Montempallo, who is Ottawa's call-up D-man, who's played on the bottom pairing. He's done great. I'm happy with him, but to have him on your second pairing for Nationals isn't great. By the way, Mikkola is 6'6", 204, so maybe not as much of a stick as he thought.
Have you seen the picture of him with the cup? I think it is.
Maybe he took some workout time off, but moving on from that,
yeah.
Valimaki, Jokiharju, and their extra is Vakanainen. So their D-court, it's weak, to say the least. Some of those guys, like Montempallo, like I said, love the guy. He's been great for Ottawa, but he is a top 6 D-man. Jokiharju, top 6. Mikkola could be top 4. Lindell is capable of being number 2. Mata's having a decent year, but it's just not that same elite talent that every other team has.
It doesn't matter how good that D-core is. They're not as strong as the other teams in this tournament. So
their only hope is their goaltending, which consists of Kevin Lankinen, Jussi Saros, and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen.
Such a fun name.
It really is. So it's just yeah.
As Canadians, we it's fun to say Finnish names. Sometimes. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. So
that's some good goaltending. Honestly, better than ours here in Canada. not quite that US level, but Lankinen's done great. Saros is doing okay. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen has done good on a bad Buffalo team. Sorry, I have to say that full name. It's just too fun.
Every time. So, like I said earlier, it's either, was it in the recording or was it the failed attempt?
Oh, the part where you started talking about Teemu Selanne, and you're like,
yes.
Oh, yes, the Finnish guy, but I'm talking about Sweden.
One of Finland's sneaky talents as a team is they always seem to have one of the best team plays of any team. They haven't always had a star-studded team. Like it wasn't, like I said, like you mentioned, Teemu Selanne. It wasn't until recently when Teemu Selanne, they started focusing on individual skill. They've always had a very, very strong team play that's been able to mitigate the lack of stars. Now, recently, you've seen players like Teemu Selanne or Patrick Laine, a lot of those guys with some high-end skills come through. But I think the biggest factor in Sweden's dark horse on this one is going to be their team play ability.
I agree. I think they're fine up front. I think it's the ability of those guys, like you said, team play. So the forwards to fall into that system, the defense to believe in whatever system their coach says, and the goalies to just be good. Each one of those goalies has potential of being elite. Like I said, he's having a good season. Saros is showing he's so good. So,
and Finland has been a goaltending factory.
Like they've had some
amazing goaltenders. Also, some not so strong goaltenders like Vesa Toskala as a Leaf fan.
But I'll leave the poor guy alone. But yes, they've had Pekka Rinne, Kari Lehtinen,
Mika Kiprusoff,
Rask, Niemi, the Nicholas Backstrom that plays net. Obviously Saros.
And that's just
actually I have to Google and see. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head here.
Yeah, like those are just some of the goalies that we're thinking off the top of our head, but like there's many more very strong goalies that have come through Finland. Not the heaviest population, but they can keep the puck out of their net.
Okay, to name a couple from this season, and I'll just have some Sens bias here. Levi Meriläinen, who's been lights out. His career, including his rough game last year, he has a 919. And 919. Let's see, 3 shutouts in 8 games. Or sorry, 3 shutouts and 8 wins, 12 games.
Yeah. You're looking at 0.66 win percentage, and almost 46% of those are shutouts. Yeah, it's a pretty solid goaltender. Especially on a team like Sens. That was before they got hot, too. A lot of that was before they got really hot and forced their way.
He was the reason that we got hot. He was the reason that we survived Ullmark being out. But we'll get too focused on Ottawa here. Go back to Finland. Yes, Finland will be a dark horse. It's going to be nice to see them. Honestly, I hope they win a few games. I don't see them winning the tournament.
No.
I don't see a huge chance. But never say never.
So moving on from the rosters, and so the way this tournament is set up is a round robin, and then the top 2 teams play in the finals.
Yep.
So each team will play each other once. So, for example, tomorrow the Team Canada will play against Team Sweden, and then on Thursday the U.S. will take on Finland.
Yep.
And then probably what very well could be the gold medal game on Saturday, USA versus Canada at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then Finland, Sweden.
1 p.m.
And then at 1 p.m. And then to finish off the round robin, you got Canada, Finland, and Sweden versus USA on Monday.
Actually, I'm going to correct you on that. That's not to finish off the round robin. Isn't that to kind of set up finals.
Yeah, that's what the round robin is. So that's the set schedule now. And then the way the points are going to work, it's the international rules, where a regulation win is going to be 3 points to 0, and an overtime win is going to be 2 points to the winner, 1 point to the loser. So with the international rules, it's going to be the top 2 teams from this round robin that ends on Monday, February 17th. The top 2 teams are going to play each other in the gold medal game, and that will conclude the tournament.
There is one rule change other than the point system from the traditional NHL. It's going to be 10-minute overtimes instead of 5.
3-on-3 or 5-on-5?
Assuming NHL 3-on-3. The way I read it, it would be 3-on-3. It said all NHL rules except. So it said the points, and then it said the 10-minute overtime. So I don't see any other change besides that.
So that in a sense is just the NHL saying we don't want to see a shootout in this tournament. Many games do finish in overtime. I really hope, like the NHL, this doesn't just become a line change duel. You bring the puck back to your zone, you get a line change, you keep a little bit of pressure on the defensive team, force them back, and then you cycle guys out, bring out the studs, and then against a tired defensive line. I mean, it's the style that works. But we can save it for another episode. There may or may not be changes to that. There's rumors. But I really hope it doesn't come to that. But knowing that it's NHL rules 3-on-3 hockey, that's likely what's going to come down to. The problem is, when you look at a team like Canada and USA, if they're in that overtime, who are you going to match up against?
It's going to be something. Imagine having McDavid, McKinnon, and Makar on ice. Imagine that speed.
Now imagine having Marner, McDavid, and Makar. That speed. Like, McKinnon's a fast player. Marner's faster. But McKinnon is going to go through you.
McKinnon's faster.
Is he really?
Yeah. McKinnon, let me see if I can find the stat. Keep chatting there. But there's 20-plus mile-per-hour bursts this season, and it's not even close.
Fair. I mean, you look at Marner likes to dance, but McKinnon, he doesn't care if he's got to go around you or through you. Correct. He's going to either get around you or you're going to end up on your butt. That's what he does. When he wants to put the puck in the net, it's going in your net, and you can't stop him. That's the biggest difference between McKinnon and McDavid. McDavid's much faster because he's the fastest player in the league. Maybe not so much this year, but the guy has hands that rival nobody. Like, he has probably got some of the best hands in NHL history. What he can do is absolutely magical, but he doesn't have the ability that McKinnon does. That, you know what? I don't really feel like Deacon right now. Drops a shoulder and puts a puck in your net.
Yeah.
So it's going to be exciting 3-on-3. There's very high chance of high flying offense, obviously, as 3-on-3 goes, but with the caliber of players that we're going to see, I think some of these overtimes, if they happen, are going to happen very quickly.
They could. It's high event hockey. That's what 3-on-3 is, and I love it. It's better than going to a shootout. They can still go to a shootout, but
yeah, you're not going to have. I would be surprised if we see a shootout. 3-on-3 hockey for 10 minutes. I don't know what the stat is. Yeah,
there'd have to be some crazy goaltending, some crazy defense.
It's not often without goal. Like, goalies to win, just to get to a shootout, have to make probably 3 or 4 big saves because you don't see point shots coming through. You don't see wraparound attempts or like lower percentage shots coming through.
Okay.
It's always one-timers and one-on-ones with the goalies, and it's high percentage only.
So I have the stat up here. Mm-hmm. McKinnon has had 408 speed bursts over 20 miles an hour. Pick any other player that you want who you think would have more than him, and I'll get it up quick.
McDavid. The obvious choice.
Even with his missed time?
With his missed time.
Okay.
Maybe we can do a factor with that. Like, You know what I mean? Like a scaled down. Like this is what he would have had if he had played as many games as McKinnon.
McDavid. Sorry, it's loading. McDavid has had 312.
In how many less games?
I don't know his games played.
Fair.
All these fancy stats, and it doesn't say games played.
Yeah.
Well, actually, there we go. It's down a little bit lower. So that's in 49 games played for McDavid.
Okay, so how many total speed bursts you're saying?
312
312 and 49?
Yeah.
Okay.
McKinnon's
and
loading.
McKinnon. Nathan McKinnon. Yeah, I mean.
And McKinnon has had 408 and 57.
408 and 57. So speed bursts over that amount per game. McDavid is at 6.37 per game. McKinnon is at 7.176.
Yeah.
So it's basically a whole nother speed burst per game at that speed.
And I'm sorry, but I'm going to burst your Marner bubble here. He's had 59.
59.
Yep.
That is honestly surprising, but not at the same time, I guess.
It is a little bit surprising for me, honestly. I figured he'd be higher.
I guess he feels that he can go around any player in the league with his hands, so maybe he doesn't use his feet as much. But he is a quick player. So that's a little bit surprising on that one.
Anyway, moving off speed burst talk. It's crazy how much of a separation there is between McKinnon and everyone else.
Yeah. That's what makes a true elite, like truly elite. Like there's elite players, and then there's beyond all recognition, good players. Like McDavid's or McKinnon's. So, yeah, it's gonna either way. It's gonna be a very fun tournament to watch, and we're all excited. Who else is excited? Leave a comment.
Definitely gonna tune in, watch that game tomorrow. Hopefully, watch Canada win.
Yes.
But that's pretty much all we have to say on the Four Nations. You know, it's kind of a nice change from the All-Star break. Just something different, and hopefully the guys are more competitive. You know, playing for the country is actually playing for potential gold rather than just, you know,
potential
they play for money.
Paycheck.
Sorry?
Like a potential $100,000 bonus for winning a skills competition.
Yeah,
that's the same thing every year.
It's nothing to them money-wise. Kucherov was ridiculous last year. He didn't try. It's embarrassing.
Yeah. Let's see how he does this tournament. Oh, wait, sorry. I forgot.
Yeah, you forgot.
Yeah, I forgot.
But we do have a cool little Timbit. So the Athletic recently did a player poll, and I believe they did it for like 80-some players. Asked them a variety of questions. So there's a few questions that I'll list off here that were asked. Sure. So question 1, you know what, Dave, you and I can answer this too. Make it a little bit more fun.
Okay.
You're an NHL player. If you have a no trade list, what's the first team on your list?
Buffalo.
At
least San Jose is in California. You have the hot sun to go out after the games and bake.
Yeah, I'm probably going to side with you just because of how dead they are. I mean, Winnipeg's cold, but I'm Canadian and they're really good. So, and Chicago and San Jose, they both have upside. They're both going. San Jose should have already been there. Buffalo should have already been there. They're just kind of in perpetual shitville.
They're just looking for the next team to support with the Stanley Cup winning players.
Now, Buffalo came in second on this list with 19.5% of players choosing them. The team that came in first with 48.8%, Winnipeg. People really don't like Winnipeg. Yeah. I mean, there's some quotes from players with this, and I remember a couple, someone was like, it's cold and there's nothing to do. It's a boring city.
Housing's cheap.
Yeah, airport's small and easy to get through. Like,
yeah. So to expand on that, Winnipeg is cold. I have a buddy who lived out in Winnipeg, and he likes to go ice fishing just like I do a lot. He was right around Lake Winnipeg, which is the biggest body of water in Manitoba, which is where Winnipeg is. For those of you that don't know, he usually around here where we live, just outside Toronto, well, where I live, the lakes start to thaw late March, sometimes early March, sometimes late March. You might get one last quick fish in if you're lucky. He went out ice fishing in late March and he was still drilling through a foot and a half of ice.
that is ridiculous. So
that's how cold it is comparably in Toronto. Well, outside Toronto here, I'm colder than Toronto because I'm an hour north. So the average temperature here this year has been -5, -6. But in Winnipeg, it's not uncommon for it to be -25, -30 for weeks on end.
If you're looking right now, the worst temperature they got in December was -33 this December. January -32, and so far this month -27. So pretty cold.
Now, we know there's areas in Russia that get extremely cold. Like, I had a buddy that lived out there, and he said,
this is way off topic, Dave.
Just quick, he said you have to leave your truck running from November until April. Otherwise, if it shuts down, it's so cold that it won't start up again.
That is a place.
Fun fact.
But other places on this list aren't too surprising. San Jose at 8.5%. Not a lot of players want to go through a rebuild. Calgary, somewhat surprising, 3.7%. Ottawa, 3.7%. Anaheim, 2.4%. New York Rangers, 2.4%. And then 11% for other teams.
Yeah. The Rangers are a dumpster fire with a GM that has no idea what he wants to be.
Yes, but I can support Buffalo. I don't support Winnipeg. I understand San Jose. Calgary and Ottawa, I mean, Ottawa's up and coming. Calgary could retool properly and do okay. But I guess it's a low percentage, so maybe someone just doesn't want to go to a Canadian market, you know?
Now, the horrible team aside in Buffalo, weather-wise, they get a ton of lake effect snow coming off of Lake Ontario and Lake Erie. Like, they just get pelted with snow. Like, there was a couple years ago where they got close to 6 feet of snow. 6 feet, not inches, feet of snow. I'm 6'1". Imagine that. Like, you're getting an entire average NHL player's height in snow in 24 hours. So yeah, they get a lot of snow. It can be miserable there too.
Moving on, Mr. Weatherman. The next question: which coach would you most like to play for other than your own?
Other than our own.
Yes. So you can pick anyone since you're not on a real team.
Depends on what I'm looking for. So I obviously can't pick Craig Berube because I'm a Leafs fan, and that's
you could if you wanted.
But I feel like he's definitely a no nonsense. Like, get in there. You're going to. I don't care who you are. You're going to battle on the boards type coach. And he's going to force it right into you. I feel like Tortorella maybe because of the humor factor, just to see his rage. But
it's not going to be funny when he rages at you.
Knowing that my dad would sometimes get really upset, and I found that funny, which made him more upset, which made me laugh even harder. I would probably have that with Torra, but I'd probably be sitting a lot. But from an overall just atmosphere type, I probably want to play for Sheldon Keefe because it feels like he's like that good cop with not a lot of bad cop.
Okay. I'll go with Paul Maurice. The interviews that I've seen from him, the player reviews on Sportox, like they just all look good, and he seems like a good guy who wants to win. Obviously, just did win. he came in second with 13.2% of the votes.
Sure.
And Sheldon Keefe was not in the top 10. John
Because
Cooper.
a lot of people want to win, and Sheldon Keefe is 1-8 in playoff series with the Leafs, so that's not surprising. So, yeah, you're saying John Cooper?
He came in first, 23.6% of the votes. Then Maurice, then Rod Brindamore, not surprising, with 8.5%. Then your man, Craig Berube, with 7.6, who tied Jim Montgomery, 7.6. Then Peter DeBoer with 6.6. Somehow Torts with 3.8.
Because I feel like he just bring a lot of laughs, whether he's intending to or not.
God, imagine just trying to hide it, then he sees you, and then he freaks out on you too. Like, no, thank you.
Imagine watching him and Mitchkov yelling at each other in different languages, not understanding each other, and trying not to laugh, and then Toro just goes.
That's Kuzmenko. That's what he's going to be like.
Yeah.
But then Peter Laviolette, 2.8%, St. Louis, 2.8%, and Rick Tocchet, 2.8%. Good old three-way tie for the last.
Now, I kind of want to go off the board maybe a little bit. Remember that Swiss coach, Wohlwend, from I think it was like 2012, when he was interviewed before quarterfinal games at the World Juniors when Team Switzerland was playing against Team Canada, and the reporters asked him before the game. He goes, "So you played against Team Canada in the preliminary round, and how do you feel? What do you feel for this game?" He basically goes and says, "Team Canada who dominates us again."
Oh yes, I know what you're
and
talking
we just
about,
tried to hold against. It's like what they got all like their entire rosters full of first and second rounders, and one in the fourth round who's played the most NHL games of anybody in the tournament. We had one fourth rounder too, one. So what I want to tell against. Like I feel like just with that interview, that would be an interesting coach to play for. Now, obviously, you'd have to go over in Europe, but still.
Yes, it would be fun. Now, flipping it, which coach would you least like to play for?
That's a tough one. I honestly don't know the answer to that.
I'm stuck between Babcock and Tortorella.
I know you're a little bit lighter emotionally than a lot, which is a good and bad thing. But so I can see why you're saying Tortorella. But I was thinking about current NHL coaches, and Babcock's basically like banned, so I wasn't going to include him in that.
I wouldn't either. I didn't think of him, but he's in this ranking. Players still think of him, I guess.
He lives rent-free in half the league.
Yeah.
Whether he directly coached him or
So
didn't.
if I want to keep it current, Torts. Yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't respond well to just someone being angry all the time, and I've seen that man smile once in the time I've watched hockey, so you know.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't see it.
Yeah, I agree. You probably wouldn't work well with Torts at all. But yeah, I honestly don't know if I have an answer for that one.
Fair enough. So Torts comes in first at 38.5%. Surprise.
You either love him or you hate him.
Bruce Cassidy's second, 12.3. Babcock's third, even though he's not coaching right now, 7.7. Tied for third, I guess, with Greg Cronin, who I'm not familiar with.
Cronin.
Lindy Ruff at 6.2. And fun fact with Lindy Ruff, one of the anonymous players was quoted saying, "I don't think he knows what he's doing anymore. He just kind of looks around and guesses at what to do. He seems really confused."
Fair. That's probably a current player, obviously, with that kind of quote. But
yep.
He was brought in for that team, and he's not the right coach for what
they brought him in because he's been there before. It was a bad decision. It's like they didn't even look at anyone else. But Patrick Waugh, 4.6. Peter Laviolette, 3.1. Mike Sullivan, 3.1. Andre Tourigny, 3.1. Yeah.
10-year? Yeah. Fair. Yeah, I can see that.
And then other 13.9.
Fair.
Overall, like I would not play for Torts. I would not play for Babcock. Lindy Ruff does seem a bit confused, so not because he's crazy and angry, but him. Patrick was, I don't know what the hell he's doing. He pulled the goalie when they had a face off in their own end, so for that reason alone, he'd be out for me too.
I'd want to ask him how he felt when he dangled Wayne Gretzky in cross center ice and got a penalty.
Hell yeah,
That would be one
fun.
of the questions I'd have for him. It's like, take us play by play on that moment, how that felt.
Okay, so this one, we can't
Yeah.
answer this question. Which NHL team has the best facilities for opposing teams? And this all makes sense. So, Detroit.
Richest,
sorry?
It's probably just gonna be a list of the richest teams.
Not really, but Detroit, Seattle, Vegas, Edmonton, Vegas. If you look at this, Detroit, new arena, Seattle, new arena, Edmonton, new arena, Vegas, new arena. So it all makes sense. Islanders are fifth at 10% of the votes, which is impressive because they don't have a super new arena. I mean, it's newer. They kind of bounce between two, but still impressive. Utah, new arena. Montreal. So there's your rich team if you want to include that. They had 1.8% of the votes, and then others 4.6. But the rest makes sense. Like 5 of those 6 teams, maybe 5.5, because Islanders sort of have a new arena. It's all basically new buildings. Edmonton's is great. I've seen pictures of it. Seattle's brand new. Detroit just moved to their new arena.
Climate Pledge? Yeah. It's
well,
supposed
all
to be
good
like
until the
really,
solar
really
runs
high
out.
tech too.
It's amazing. And like the infrastructure, everything that went into that, it's really cool. But that's more my environmental brain looking at it.
They got those Starbucks bucks.
Now let's flip it here. Which team facility is the worst?
Well, considering they're not a team, I'd assume that would be Arizona. Considering they played in a college facility and still couldn't fill.
They would definitely be top if they were still a team.
If they're still a team.
But the top team comes in with 65.7% of the vote. It's the most players have agreed on anything so far. Carolina. Like, how bad is their facility?
I mean, they're not a big market. They have a great team, but they've never been a big market. So I can kind of see that. They don't have the dollars that a lot of these other teams do to build that kind of thing. So, and they're still a relatively new team. I mean,
they have that new
in relative terms to most of the NHL still, but I mean, they have that one cup win with where they had Cam Ward backstopping them. But
you have to keep in mind they were the Hartford Whalers before.
Yeah,
they've been around.
But I mean, like based on where they have been in that location, relative to the other teams.
Anyway, Calgary's second at 20%, and then it drops down. So Washington's 1.9, along with Boston, Colorado, and the Rangers.
Boston, Colorado, and the Rangers.
I'm going to say Colorado isn't liked because of the mile high effect, and maybe players just don't like playing there.
Yeah.
Washington, Boston, like I don't really see a problem. Maybe they don't like how busy New York is, and I don't blame them.
New York.
Maybe they don't like the gridlock in Boston because it was designed for people that lived there in the 1800s. Streets are small. Facility should be fine though. Like it's the TD Gardens, a nice building. But the top one makes sense. With what you said. Calgary, I don't know. That might change because they are getting a new arena. Its ground's been broke, so I'm sure that's going to change.
Yeah, the Saddledome is a fairly old facility. And it's just it's just not a modern facility.
It's not, and it's really cool though. I'm gonna miss it.
It's a saddle because the Calgary Stampede, for those of you that are not aware, it's one of the biggest rodeo events in the world, let alone in Canada. It's the biggest in Canada. It's a pretty cool event. I've never been. But
now, this question we can answer, and it's going to be a pretty quick answer for both of us, I think, anyway. Do you like the idea of an in-season tournament like the NBA's? No.
As a replacement for the All-Star game, because it kind of became redundant in the fact that it's just kind of the same thing year after year, and the players are not really that interested. In that sense, yes.
To be clear, this is a tournament not like we have right now with the Four Nations. This is a tournament where teams compete against each other for a different trophy. But continue.
In that case, no.
Yes.
That makes the Stanley Cup a little bit less redundant.
Exactly.
More redundant.
So the players weren't.
I thought you were talking about the Four Nations.
Yeah, not the Four Nations. The players didn't answer this like I thought. So 54% said no, or 54.5, and 45.5 said yes.
Because more players get to play more hockey, maybe?
Maybe. But I'm going with no.
So, just because I don't know, do you know what the NBA in-season tournament is?
Oh, what do you mean exactly?
Like what it consists of? Like, because you said it's not like the Four Nations Cup. I don't follow the NBA at all, to be completely honest. And even though the Raptors just won a couple years ago, I knew about it because it was all over the news the next morning. I don't follow the NBA at all.
It just started. So it started in the 23-24 season.
Okay.
It's called the in-season tournament. They compete for some sort of trophy. And that's all I got.
So
I don't know.
It's like an all-star tournament with just regular teams.
Kinda. Yeah.
So what's the just increase the amount of games in the schedule?
Speaking of the schedule,
like we didn't win the cup, but we won this nothing tournament that does absolutely nothing for our team.
Yeah,
it has no prestige. So,
next question: is the season too long? I don't think so.
I don't think so. Maybe I would like to see the teams play home and home against every single team. So how to work that schedule a little bit. I would love to see, because with the amount of like 32 teams in the league now, you can't have that. Some of the teams are only going to play once every other year. So that, from that standpoint, maybe a little bit of a change. But when it comes to schedule and style of play, I think the biggest changes they can make is going back to the 1v8 in the Stanley Cup playoffs in that first round. I think that's the biggest.
Hold your thoughts. That could be a question.
Okay, well, maybe we'll get back to that later. If not, we'll discuss it.
So 58.3% said no, 41.7% said yes. And by the way, every team in the NHL plays every team each year.
Yeah, but like they don't play, because there's 32 teams now, they don't always play every single team in both buildings. So like the Leafs might play Seattle in Seattle, but they don't play Seattle in Toronto because the schedule doesn't allow for that in 82 games. But yeah, it's not. I'm just using those two teams as an example. Those aren't the actual teams, but I know there's a team that Leafs only play in their building and not in Toronto.
I have to double check that. I just Googled and it said they all play each other twice, but that could be wrong. Anyway,
maybe I'm wrong.
This is
possible.
The most fun one.
The most fun one.
Should Gary Bettman retire?
I mean, he just announced that he is, but he didn't announce a timeline. People love to hate Gary Bettman. He looks like a weasel, to be honest. And who are you going to replace him with? You have to have somebody at that kind of caliber to replace him with. And maybe that's why Bettman's been around so long as he has been. But part of being the commissioner of the NHL, you're a face so that the owners of the each NHL team can hide a little bit. You're taking the brunt of that, so that the owners don't have that as much. Just kind of like the Players Association is with the actual players. Bettman takes some of that heat off of the owners, so that's part of the role. But a lot of people do not like Bettman, and you got to find a replacement for him first before you can say you need to go.
Yes.
Like I could go and say the CEO of many companies should be gone, but you have to replace them. So who you replace him with is the first question. But yes, he is getting up there, and he did announce his retirement this year. So maybe it's time to pass the torch. But you gotta find the person who's going to bear that torch.
It was 111 players that were pulled, by the way. Just to be clear, I was a little bit off with the 80s. Here's what some players had to say on Gary Bettman. So we've had the least turmoil of the most leagues. I'm fine with him. I don't even know what that fucking guy does.
Which is fair. And I think a lot of fans don't know what he does.
This one I agree with. You're not ever going to be liked. He had a good run. Let someone else step in now. Because not everything he's done has been bad, but he's fallen behind.
I mean, he's the commissioner of the NHL. You look at what the NHL has come from and what's gone to. They introduced the cap, 10 years ago. A contract of $8 million was almost unheard of, but now a contract of $8 million is kind of like, okay, well, that's not a bad contract for a second liner. In that sense of how much the league revenue has grown, a lot of that is because of him. So
yeah,
he's a person that people love to hate, but don't really understand the extent of what he does. So
I got a couple other snippets here. So this is about the coaches and anonymous player. I haven't heard too many things about the Vegas coach Cassidy. I don't really know him that well, but I haven't heard one good thing about him.
That's a fairly strong quote.
Let's see about the facilities. All of the newer buildings are great. So like I said,
that's fair. I mean, the Scotiabank Arena in Toronto's been around for a while. I mean, it replaced the Maple Leafs Gardens in the early 2000s. So maybe
okay,
but it wasn't built for growth.
The Carolina one, this is one of the players. The visiting room sucks, and the home room is basically the visiting room with some paint on the walls. So yeah, pretty shitty.
I mean, anything's better than just curtains surrounding a hallway like they had in Arizona.
Yes, it's pretty hard to be worse than that, so it's not setting the bar too high. But
I would love to see some of the quotes on that if they were available for polling.
Oh, people complained about it. It was really embarrassing for the NHL to have that.
And the team didn't even have their own logo at center ice.
No, they shared it with the university.
Yeah. Who draws more fans than them? Like
OHL teams.
Trashing
Arizona.
It's not worth it anymore. They're not here anymore.
But that is pretty much it. So a little fun player poll. And we have Four Nations tomorrow. So we'll see what happens between Canada and Sweden. We'll be back later this week. Probably discuss it on Thursday or Friday. And so, as always,
a couple
Dave
things
has something else to say.
Yes. So just going back to it a little bit. The Four Nations is an exciting event for fans. The players are really excited to do it. Like, look at the Brad Marchand quote, where he came in and said, "I don't care if I'm filling water bottles the entire time. I'm just excited to be there." So
Exactly.
whether that's genuine or not, I'm pretty sure it's genuine. But this is what the players have wanted, and one of the biggest reasons why they want to go to the Olympics, because they want to, one, they want to play hockey. Two, they want to see best on best hockey, and that's what this tournament is going to be for the NHL, best on best.
Yeah.
Maybe some of the best countries aren't there for various reasons,
Yes, you're
but
missing Russia and Czech, who are two big players, but yeah.
yeah, for obvious reasons that we're not going to mention. But yeah, it's going to be a really, really, really fun tournament, and a lot of the players it's going to give some rest that who aren't playing. Like there's a couple players that were saying, "I got a trip to Mexico that I got booked, but I'm ready to cancel to have a chance to crack in the roster." I can't
Yeah.
remember who that was, but that's been said. So it's going to be a very interesting tournament. But my prediction is it's going to be Canada USA in the gold medal game, which is I think a pretty fair statement to make given the rosters.
Yeah.
But
It's likely.
I I think USA takes it from the goalie factor.
Oh, yeah, I'm scared of that, but it's definitely a possibility.
Yeah.
But we'll have plenty of time to make picks in future episodes, so we'll wait till that selection's made. As always, like, share, subscribe, comment if you have any questions, anything you want us to discuss.
Anything at all. What would you like to see? How can we improve? Ask in the comments.
Have a good night, everyone.
Take care.